Hello there. I am here today with Brian Bender, an industry leader, and we are talking about risk profile management. Brian, can you tell me a little more about yourself?
Hi, I'm Brian Bender. I'm the Senior Director of Purchasing for J.M. Huber Corporation, based out of Atlanta, Georgia.
1. Risk profiles can establish a current state and desired state for suppliers that your organization rely on. Please tell me of a time where you have utilized a risk profile methodology that provided significant impact to your organization.
As we profile our suppliers and the basic elements of our supply chain is that the risk profiles that we create, we generally, it's an ongoing effort. There's not an easy way or a simple way to create profiles for each and every supplier. And you have to really look at what are the different key elements that you have across your supply chain and your network that you need to track and be accountable for. What we do on our side in regards to risk profiles is that we have a regular basis, a regular round where we look at public companies' financials. We listen in on conference calls that they do on quarterly earnings and annual earnings. But we also do a very, I think, good effort in speaking with the vendor community, speaking with the supply base, specific about some of the issues that they have. And as a couple examples, for instance, you take a public company that you do a lot of business with. In this case here, I'll use as an example, Olin Corporation. This last year, they did a reverse Morris Trust with Dow Chemical's basic chemical business, and almost doubled in size through the process. And the new entity, which began in October last year, is one of our top 10 suppliers in the world. Because of the drop in the commodity markets, because of the challenges they have with really running a much larger organization today, is that we profile Olin specific to where they stand in regards to their capital investments, how they're organized in regards to the people that run the business, the people that operate the different operating plants that we buy from. And we're very cognitive in our discussion with Olin. We talk with them about their financials, we talk about their liquidity, and we talk about them specific to environmental issues and things along those lines, and regulatory piece. That profile helps us as we go through we have a schema that we use at Huber, where on a quarterly basis we have to draft and publish a risk report for our supply chain base. That report is circulated to our risk committee and goes up through the CEO and eventually ends up in the board of directors in their reading that they do as well. So we use those profiles and we use it in the context of, I think, 4 different elements. Those elements being geographic risk, market risk, performance risk, and financial risk. All of which I think are very critical that you have to look at discreetly by supplier.
2. How did you engage internal stakeholders, i.e. engineering, finance, manufacturing, etc., in the risk profile process, and what were the benefits, the difficulties, the key learnings?
There's an engagement process that we have at Huber where we work inclusively with finance, engineering, risk management, legal, and the business managers that run the business. And we do this on an ongoing basis. We generally run a center-led, decentralized organization in purchasing and supply chain. The Huber Corporation is family-owned. We're private. And as such, each of the business managers that run the businesses have discrete responsibility for the P&L and what they have in their business. They look for us to give them the right guidance about what's happening in the business, what's happening with their supply chain base. For instance, we have a current situation here in the United States that we are one of the largest buyers of what's called chemical grade alumina that's produced in alumina refineries. There's 5 active refineries in North America today. 4 of them are under significant distress. 2 of those 4 are in Chapter 11. One is, has already announced a full curtailment, which is Alcoa in Point Comfort, Texas, on July 1. And as such, our business, which the main feedstock is this chemical grade alumina, is certainly at risk. The process we went through in this one here is that I started with engagement last summer as the financials started telling us that things were going south. We ran into the first of this year in a spate of like 4 days in the second week of January. Alcoa announced they were closing, and then 2 other refineries declared Chapter 11. In that discussion, we had the engineering, the operations, legal, as well as the business managers involved in to articulate what the problems were, that these were going to create some significant changes or requirements for changes in change management within our organization. We make engineered materials, and as such, we have a fairly distinct change management process for qualification of suppliers in the materials that we use, but it also flows downstream to our customers, and that what we manufacture, the feedstock that we use for the products that we then sell, have to be qualified downstream at our customers. So there was a significant engagement, and it's ongoing, in fact, right now, make sure that the supply chain base that we've covered, both offshore and onshore, has enough sufficient material to run our operations, but at the same time, make sure that our customers downstream know about that, and our finance folks are aware what the situation is, so we can set up the appropriate reserves in the accounting if necessary.
3. What advice would you provide to organizations that are just implementing or thinking of implementing a risk profile process?
In regards to setting up a risk profile process and a risk management process, my suggestion to organizations that have not done this in the past or just beginning with it is that there's an ongoing effort. You have to look at risk over the course of a long period of time, and we've been tracking on a quarterly basis our risk rating for almost 4 years now, and so we've become better at it over the course of time. But I think first out of the gate, the things that, if you're a novice in this, is that you have to be very attentive to the 4 elements that I spoke of earlier: the geographic risk, financial risk, the performance risk, and the market risk. Have that dialogue within your supply chain organization, have that dialogue within your greater organization, enterprise. And people have to be very candid about what they see and what they hear in regards to those conditions. Geographic may be if you've got, let's say you've got operations in Eastern Europe that run on natural gas, and they're dependent upon the Russian government supplying gas to Eastern Europe. You have to be very cognitive of what the relationships are between the EU, the US, and the Russian government in regards to, is that supply of gas going to be there and at what price? If you've got operations in Southeast Asia or China, for instance, you have to be very sensitive to what's going on in both the macroeconomy of China as well as what's going on in the individual countries, whether it be Vietnam, Thailand, India, or into Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore. If you're talking about market risk and market fundamentals, you've got to be at least very much aware of what are the drivers for your market, what are the drivers for the products that you buy and the products that you sell, knowing that is it energy based, is it knowledge or technology based, where that's happening, whether it's onshore or offshore. If you're referring to performance, do you have a good quality management system? Do your suppliers have good quality management systems? And are you are you religious and organized around following up on particular situations that happen? And of course, and then the financial risk is, what's the liquidity of your supply base? How much available cash do they have? And are they able to operate and reinvest in their business at the appropriate level so that from a both short and long-term basis, they can operate for you?